He is a story of successful rehabilitation, you might say, a poster boy for the importance of giving people a second chance. Because just under 2 weeks ago, that man, James McMurdock, was elected to our parliament as the Reform UK MP for South Basildon and East Thurrock. What do you make of that? Because as I say, that is the epitome. He is the embodiment, isn't he, of successful rehabilitation. Did something wrong, did something appalling, served his time, served his sentence, came out, got his life back on track, got back on the straight and narrow, made something of himself, ends up as a member of the British Parliament. Is that a success story? Is that something we should celebrate? Is James McMurdock someone that we should celebrate? Is he the poster boy for how rehabilitation in this country should be done? The reason I say I don't know whether the sort of the test that has thrown up for my lofty ideals about rehabilitation, whether I've passed that test, is because my gut instinct says no. It says that, yes, in theory, rehabilitation is important, but there are limits to it, that we have to draw a line somewhere. That there are certain jobs that mean that having done something like assault your then girlfriend, however long ago that might be, you are quite possibly disqualified from. Would you want someone convicted of assault like that teaching your children? Would you want them working as a police officer? Would you want them working in a domestic violence refuge, for an example? And if the answer is no, then, well, why do you want them representing tens of thousands of people in Parliament? So I've got to say my instinct on that is no. It does not sit comfortably with me.
Thank you. First time speaking to you, trying to get my breath out. First of all, I did work in probation a long time ago, and I do believe in the rehabilitation of offenders. However, if somebody commits an act of violence, they have crossed a Rubicon in terms of the way that they behave towards people. Getting a 1 week youth sentence is not sufficient if, and I have every reason to believe, the victim's mother is to be believed, does not actually do anything to change the behaviour. What changes behaviour is being in a domestic violence programme, actually looking at your behaviour, what the reasons were for it, you know, that sort of thing.
But Tess, let's just be clear on this, just brief, just on that before you move on. There's no suggestion anywhere that I've seen that he's done anything wrong since then. So he has seemingly reformed. He has been rehabilitated. He's married, he's got kids, he's made a life for himself. There's no suggestion of wrongdoing apart from when he was 19.
Yeah, but he did do that at 19, and for some reason that stays with you. When you commit an act of violence, you have changed. You have done something that is not within the social norm. It is not something you can row back in your behaviour. You don't know what goes on behind closed doors.
But you're saying people can't change.
We've got no idea of his personal life.
But you're saying there's limits. There are limits on the extent that people can change, having committed one act of violence when he was 19.
Yeah, and he was drunk, and so on and so forth. But there were two different accounts. There were two different accounts of it. If you bear in mind the amount of violence towards women, 3 women a week die, the amount of danger that women are in, the amount of domestic violence that doesn't get sorted out, all of those things need to be taken into consideration. If someone commits an offence that involves violence, yes, their convictions are spent, but then there is also the thing that even with a spent conviction, you're not going to become a teacher, you're not going to become a social worker, there are certain caring professions that you're prevented from being part of. Similarly, if you committed a crime that was a white-collar crime, that involved fraud or something like that, are you likely to be able to work in a betting shop, in the banking sector? I think not.
Does the time period not matter if it was 20 years ago? That is relevant, isn't it? Just briefly.
No, yeah, it's relevant to an extent, but people are not. There are jobs that you can do. You can rehabilitate, but there are some jobs that you're disbarred from, and that's what I'm saying. And I actually think that being an MP, what on earth made you think to him, what that's made you think that it was okay for you to do this when you were drunk?
But I don't think
push your girlfriend
but
over
he
and do those
doesn't.
things.
He doesn't. Tess, this is important. He doesn't say it was okay. He says he regrets it more than anything else in his life. That's really important. But I agree with you. I think on the jobs point, there are some jobs that are too important, too influential, too powerful. And there's not many in that category, but I would say that being an MP is one of them. That even if it's a long time ago, even if you have been rehabilitated, it still should disqualify you. I mean, the obvious example is, would you want someone with, I don't know, convictions for any sort of sexual crime, child sexual crime, working in a school? Of course you wouldn't. Even if they were convicted 50 years ago, of course you wouldn't want them working. Afternoon. Sal, afternoon.
Good afternoon. Is it unreasonable that you feel the way you do? No. Is it fair that you should hold it against him? No. Because this is a case of where our emotions needs to be kept in check. For us, we have just found out this thing that has happened 20 years ago. It was 20 years ago. He admitted it. He served his sentence, and he has done, as far as we are aware, nothing since other than try and be a productive member of society. Would the prisons be in the way they are now had we actually had more interaction with people who have gone through that system in Parliament?
So you actually think the fact that he was in prison makes him better qualified to be an MP because he's got insight into something that most MPs don't?
And never think about because there are no votes in it.
Sal, it was only a
yes,
week.
I do.
Though. He was in. According to some reports, he was in a young offenders institute for a week. So he's not an expert in the criminal justice system by any means.
But he has more direct experience than the majority of MPs do. He actually has gone through a system which worked better 20 years ago than it does now, and actually. Part and parcel of the issue we have had with our Parliament is that we have had people from a strata of society who have no concept whatsoever about an awful lot of things that other people actually have to deal with day to day.
True, but what the implication of what you're saying is that part of the problem with our politics is there's not enough criminals in it. I mean, the common consensus
That's not
is
true.
the
They're
opposite.
just not the sort of criminals who often get caught and get sentenced. That's a different story altogether.
So
But
we want more
rehabilitation is the
convicted
point
criminals
of
in
prison.
Parliament.
No, my argument is we've already had them. I don't agree with his politics. Quite frankly, personally, I don't agree with reform at all. But that doesn't mean that we should treat him any differently to anyone else who has served their time.
But Sal, I would say the same about a Labour MP, a Tory MP, a Lib Dem, whoever it
Absolutely.
was, if they'd been convicted of that.
But either we believe in rehabilitation or we don't. And
But there's
yes,
limits.
it is a thorn. Yes, but I don't believe that this crosses that limit.
So you think there are limits, but this right? Okay, I hear you.
Should he have disclosed it to the voting population? There again, right. I don't know, and I am uneasy about this because I may be a Liberal Democrat and the rest of it, but ultimately, is that informed consent when going to the ballot box? He told his party, and we have a party system in this country, and therefore he has discharged his duty as a citizen in order to, legally be on the ballot. And so as far as I'm concerned, he's done all the right things. You don't think
he should have disclosed it?
No, he did. He disclosed it to his party.
Yeah, but that's different, isn't it? Telling your party is one thing, but if you are going to an election,
not when we have the system that we do. But that's part and parcel of why we have parties and why we have prospective parliamentary candidates.
Don't his constituents have a right to know about the fact that they are about to? Well, they did elect an MP with that record, with that history.
When we also, on the counter argument to this, we know that we know that there is a stigma that is attached to all forms of criminal records,
yes.
and there's no getting away from that.
It's true, and I think, and in most jobs, Sal, I think that's a problem. I'm not saying that someone with any criminal record should never work again. There are very few jobs that I don't think this man should be able to do. He should be able to walk into most jobs. It shouldn't hold him back. I'm just not convinced that a role as powerful and influential and significant as a member of Parliament, an MP, a representative of tens and tens of thousands of people is one of those jobs. He made a career for himself in banking. Good on him. I'm not saying he shouldn't be able to do that. But we should set the bar higher, shouldn't we, for the 650 people that we elect every few years to serve all of us? They should be the most upstanding examples of citizens of this country. Sal, thank you for the call. Let's go to Julia in Kingston. Julia, tricky one this. What do you make of it? Afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon. Now, I'm just 100%, it's not tricky at all. I think if you are going for specific jobs, that if you have done something which proves that you may be possibly not in control of your behaviour and your emotions, it's not appropriate or responsible to allow that person to do the job. I'm a teacher. If I went out and punched somebody in the face, I would display a level of behaviour that would make people hopefully and actually legally prevent me from teaching a class of children again. I'm a teacher of 30 children on a very small scale. You're talking about an MP that can actually be part of a discussion about whether we go to war or not. And he didn't go out and steal a packet of crisps. He didn't steal something. He assaulted somebody, and he actually went to prison.
Does it not make a difference that it was 20 years ago and he was 19?
I don't think it makes any difference. It wouldn't make any difference in my job. If I assaulted somebody when I was 21, I mean...
So, Julia, just on that. So would this James McMurdock, would he not be able to become a teacher today? Surely he would.
I mean, I think if you assault somebody, you have to do a DBS check. So you have to have a criminal records check. There are different types of crimes, so I would assume that they look into what is the type of crime that you commit. And yes, I would think that it's a barring system. If you have committed, a theft from a shop, would be considered very much different from assault on an individual. And I think that exactly what you were saying, we need to have a standard of the people that are in the most important position in our society that is very high, justifiably so. It's not a judgment on an individual. There are many other... He's done very well in banking. Good luck to him, and that would be a career that he could go back to. But actually being an MP, I would say absolutely no. And I don't think... I think also that his constituents definitely should have been aware of that.
But if you don't have to declare it, if it's a spent conviction, which 20 years on we don't know, but you would assume it would be, if he wouldn't have to declare it to any other employer because the conviction is spent, and actually any other employer wouldn't even be within their rights to ask about a spent conviction, then should he be expected to declare it when he's standing for Parliament?
I mean, if you're asking me for my personal opinion, I would say 100% yes.
Because it's
if you're asking me to analyse the law, right. I don't know. I think morally, a person that has assaulted another person, and this is actually not even just a person in the street on the pub, this is somebody within his home that he is supposed to be.
It was outside a nightclub, but yeah, it was his then girlfriend. Julia, I don't think there's any suggestion that he's done anything illegal by not declaring it. It is about whether he should have done so. It's about honesty and transparency, isn't it, rather than whether he should have been forced to. Julia, I hear you completely. I sort of instinctively agree, and yet I hear at the back of my mind what Dominic was saying, what Sal was saying about second chances, rehabilitation. You can't talk the talk, and then when something like this comes up, not put your money where your mouth is and say, look, I don't like what he did. It's awful, but it was 20 years ago. He deserves a second chance, and good on him for making something of his life. Can you? I really struggle with this one morally. Julia, lovely to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed.